Body checks running out.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's see if the microphone's working. Looks like you can see the screen, so that's a good start. Episode 312. It is 8 o'clock on the 11th of January 2026. Welcome back, everybody. Today is a Sunday. I'm glad to be back. So we're doing Claude skills for 2026. We're going to go through a bunch of my Claude skills, give you the rundown on all the latest releases from the inside line. Don't forget, the links are in the description. If you're watching live or watching later, check the description. There's lots of links. ScuffedEpoch.com. You're listening to my radio station. You can find the links. It's all good. Thank you very much for joining. Hello, Fernicar in the chat. Battle Cruise operational, liked and subscribed. So we're going to try to take it easy tonight, but I got a lot to cover. So hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear. Thank you all for joining tonight. Appreciate it. Shout out to anybody in the chat watching live. Like I say, I only can do the Sundays at the moment because we're working hard. But I want to bring you the latest. So before we get into it, I'm going to jump into the Discord inside line because that's usually the quickest way for me to run through everything that just happened. Okay. So we did lots of stuff and it's all been released. So where are we? We were doing a whole bunch of cool JSX components. So here we have an alt attitude gauge. Here we have a spiral pathing. Thank you, Mike's good. Thank you, Fernie. All of these are released as separate components that can be integrated into React games with JavaScript. We made a whole bunch of different ones. So we have the procedural terrain. Okay, and then further we have a complete game here, React Ace. So this is a full sort of space game where you fly around and you use missile hell to shoot all of the pirates. It's a very cool game, actually. Then we have 3D RoboGen that creates wireframe procedural models with SVGA vertex shading. So it's a very, very efficient way of making game assets, and this is using procedural determinism. That's our seed stuff from image generation to make a bunch of different mobs, and those were all used ultimately in a game later, which we'll get to. But we've got the cheat menu, which is ID KFA, so don't forget to try that on some of my games. Should bring up a God menu and all kinds of cool stuff. We then did engine sounds based on Outrun. That was a collaboration with one of Fernicar's games. I still need to release my version of that so you can actually test it out. Had a bunch of other cool stuff like deterministic procedural 3D cars. Then we did the SNES audio component. These all actually have, by the way, a live. So if I go here, there is a live demo that you can try in the browser for all of these. If we continue, we get down to the deep research. So I even linked the deep research for the SNES. You can see how we did that. We move on. We got the low poly ships builder. That's what I'm going to be using to put together. Well, I'm calling it Ryrat Wars at the moment, but we'll probably change the name. There's one of the ships that I built using that tool. So low poly ships JSX is a ship builder that puts them together. It saves in GLB or GTLF. Very efficient. You can make little 100 poly, 100 poly. So it's very, very small. You can paint the vertexes, and like I said, you can import them as GTLF in your games. All right. RPG dialogue. So this is like a template for making little RPG speech inside your games. All of these are going to get put together at the end, by the way. I'm still in the middle of doing it. So we've got the building generator, obviously for putting on your procedural terrain. You want some buildings when you're flying past them in all your spaceships. So we did that. That's released. A quick reminder of the GLB animation preview tool that we made a couple of months back, so you can test the assets that you've made and make sure they're actually cooking correctly, which they do, which is nice. Coming down, we have the Star Fox controller. So this is the Star Fox 64 style game controller. Obviously, you could build any type of game like that. It's like a forward moving 3D tunnel where you move up and down, left and right. So it follows a spline. And the idea is that when you implement your game, you create a level editor where you can place the splines. And then it follows the path a little bit like Star Fox. Anyway, hence the name, Star Fox Controller. We also then have the mission screens. I don't know if you've ever played Star Fox, but there is a branching mission path. So we've made the UI for that. Wow, I don't think Tailwind worked, do you? It's like white. Oh my god, we're going to have to change the style on that. Let me just change that to that. Okay, so then we have, that's mission screens, okay? And then we have boss fights. Now, obviously, boss fights need attack patterns. So we have a controller, which is determining what attacks, which bosses, the HP bar. It's like little pieces of the video game, you know? So it's loosely based on Star Fox, again, as you might imagine. But yeah, you can imagine, you know, you're on the screen, you have to kind of like dodge some attacks or hit the boss. Okay. And then we have the cinematic intros JSX, which sort of sets the camera angle to certain views quickly. So, you know, when you enter a level, it kind of swoops around the plane, that kind of thing. And it's just a modular JSX can be integrated into any React 3JS game. Like all of these, they're built modular and they can be assembled by Claude code later with whatever you're making. Space, any kind of flight sim, really. Also experimented with something called voxel props. Most of these have a web demo, a demo.html in the repo, so you can just go and check it out straight away. You don't need to mess around. If you want to just see what it is, most of these have a demo.html you can just try. So we've done that. But it also has an integration document, which means it's easy to just add the document and the JSX and say, hey Claude, add this thing to my game. So it's easy to integrate. I've tried to make it kind of like white label, if that makes sense. So it's like template starter assets. Right. Then we have the explosion engine. This one's actually really fun. Let me just show you this one real quick because it's worth showing at least one of these real quick. Let's see, explosion demo. So if I just get the demo HTML and download it and just run it. There we go. We've got our explosion demo, right? So if I now hit small explosion, see a little bit of debris came off, medium explosion, big bit of debris, large explosion, more debris, boss explosion, big explosion. You see, it's like an explosion engine for your game. And what happens is, wherever the enemy is, it imparts its momentum into the thing. So it'll kind of like fork and split off. That's the idea. It's like Ace Combat style, you know, but they do it in Lilac Wars, or should I say Star Fox 64 as well. So this is just an example. All of these come with a little demo, and the demo explains, you know, all of the pieces, how to integrate it. It's very cool, but there is an integration document and a JSX. You don't need the HTML. This is literally just so that you can quickly say, is this even what I want to get? And these are all templates, as I say. So we go back and keep going. That's the explosion engine, guys. Moving on, we have the weapons system.jsx. So we may as well show this one off as well, because this one's quite fun. I came up with a weapons system, so it's kind of like bullet hell, I guess, for a sci-fi sort of, yeah, you'll see what I mean. So we go into it, and what we have is we have our spaceship. There's enemies ahead. They don't move. I've got my aim, so I can shoot, and it's auto lock on right now. I can hit tab to say manual aim. Now I can aim. If anything, I wish I could zoom in and out, but it's okay. So the little red dots you can barely see are lock-ons that are in the far distance. So I'm on rapid fire right now, so we'll try the flak gun. So as you can see, the flak gun is making a little explosive flaks, and some of them are hitting the enemies. We go with lightning, and we fire, and if they hit, they chain lightning between the enemies. We can go with the beam, and it's going to do an instant beam. Obviously, if we have it on auto lock and we hold fire and just cycle through the targets, it's quite good. But these are all power-ups, so I don't know if you noticed when I did it, it only worked for a few seconds. So we'll try the gravity now. Just going to fire a gravity. Nothing happened. Oh wait, I have to do New Game Plus. It's a New Game Plus weapon, so it makes a gravity bomb a black hole, which everything near it gets sucked into the black hole. Okay, that's pretty cool. So anyway, we also have missile systems, so let's spawn more enemies and change over to the missile system. So you get Hellfires out of the box, so that's a massive swarm of missiles, which is lagging me out right now. It's not optimized, of course. Have I run out of... Did I run out of ammo or something? What's going on? Oh, it's a cooldown. I used all of them. Right, of course. The missiles have a cooldown, of course, because they're overpowered. The enemies are actually, I think, God-moded right now, but they still get killed by the black hole, of course. Anyway, we'll go with the smart bomb next. So we'll fire the smart bomb. Oh, did I mess that up? Oh, okay, that's not working. Go with the buster. That's for the boss. So the buster will always miss the enemies, but it will hit the boss. Oh wait, I've got to lock onto the boss, do I? Because you're supposed to save it for the boss fight. Let me see if I can get it to work. Yeah, and it takes them to half health. It's like a tactical upgrade, I guess, you can pick up and save it. That was the idea. So let's get some more enemies. And we have the barrage, which is like a constant fire at your target rather than a swarm. And then finally we have Thor's hammer, which is the orbital strike. So if I bring in a lot of enemies and we put the Thor on, it fires the rods from God. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. Manual aim. Oh, you can't manual aim it. Can you even change the targets? Let me clear this. Oop. I ran out. Try again. Whoa, it fired immediately, like instant from the space. Hello Zeus, welcome to the show. So we also have some passive power-ups that happen over time. Multi-lock, overdrive, active armor. So there it is. Like I say, it's a little demonstration, and that combined with the all of the other systems, you put it all together and you got yourself a little video game. So that's what we've been assembling slowly. Obviously I do it in between what I'm working on, so it takes time. So anyway, let's keep going. That would be the weapons system. We also have the wingman support system, which, as you can imagine, your little wingman flies in and he shoots the enemies for you, and it's on like a cooldown. Okay, each wingman has a different ability, and you have to pick one of two of them at the start of the game. So that gives you a little bit more replayability, you see. It's a little bit like a Tekken Tag tournament where you have a button to let them come in and do a special move, it's a little bit like that. So that's your wingman support. And then we move on to the new agentic stuff. Okay. And that's where we start talking about skills. So skills, in case you didn't know, are a way of controlling the behavior of Claude code. They're a lot like the system prompts, which we've been using in our community for the longest time, but they're like slightly written differently and have a bit of a format requirement in that they have YAML head matter at the top. Front matter, don't know why I said front matter, head matter? Front matter in the head. So at the top of the document, there's a specific way of putting something there. -- name, description, license, -- That's pretty much it. Obviously, you've got to put your colons in, but that's pretty much it. Other than that, you've got to focus on behavior. So they are written slightly differently. And also, it's now the .skill is a renamed .zip. So that means that if you just package up the skills you had, you can do it. I would just throw them in and say, make this into a skill file for me. That seems to be working well. But I've re-released all of mine as proper .skill now, so they're reintegrated with the new updated system. And we're going to talk about it. So that's the intro. I think we're all caught up. Yeah, so there is the Zero system we're going to look at, which has the full agentic version and the Claude Code skill. So we're getting there. And then I also did the stand slicing, which is a little bit of an optimization for developers to stop your scripts getting super long. Even if you do split component architecture, he has a tendency to make the store.js or ts or whatever it is you're coding in tends to be quite large. And so this introduces splitting it. So yeah, so stand slicing and system extraction is what it is. But you know if you know, and you don't if you don't, and it doesn't matter. We also have Kojima building principles, which was just a little bit of fun. We decided to take a little look, take a little study on some of Kojima's building elements, some of his hidden lore and hidden... We're just trying to sort of see what he's doing and use that as a way to get an inverted narrative game design consultant who will make recommendations by evolving our plan. So if we give it a plan, it will try to weave in Kojima building principles. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, actually. And we did it with a bunch of things to see what would happen, and it did a great job. But we were also testing something else at the same time, which was doing more with Rust. And also rebuilding our JavaScript game in Python. So we're doing a bunch of different things at the moment. We decided to use Panda 3D to rebuild the tanks game. And it did actually work. It wasn't as good as the one we made in React and 3JS. But I think that's a skill issue because that's the first time we used Panda 3D. But the point is we were able to convert one of our game tins to be written in Panda 3D, which is Python. A lot easier to work with, I'll be honest. A lot quicker to develop. But anyway, everything has pros and cons. So that's pretty much where that was. And then today, I saw a tweet from our friend Emad, the old CEO of Stability AI. And he made a tweet about how we could be making our own OS with these models now because they're actually that huge and capable. And he mentioned how big the Linux code base is and mentioned that there's plenty of room, okay? But the funny thing is that it got me thinking, there's something called Loaf, which is Linux on a floppy. Now, obviously, we've been having a little chat in our community, so I think it was a little bit of help with Redial, a little bit of help with Fernicar, I can't remember. But I remember talking to them both today. And we had a little look at this. So what we've ended up doing is we've created a little experiment. So Loaf is Linux on a floppy. That's 1.44 megabytes. Now, it's very old, so we had to do it again. So what I've done is I put out a bunch of things. So there's the Claude OS Tins README, which is the experiment itself, beyond Loaf. Claude OS. And I am building it to see what will happen. But if we see here, we started off with Loaf. And then that's the proof of concept Linux OS project. So we wanted to see, could we do that with an LLM? Then he says yes. So we published the plan. And I said, here is the Loaf implementation plan. So that's the tins for Loaf, Linux on a floppy. So if you run this plan, he will create a Linux distro, which is 1.44 megabytes. Okay. Now, we took this further. I said, all right, that's great. But what if I say 128 megabytes? What if I give him more headroom? So then we came up with the plan for Micro Linux Successor Study. This is the study. So you'll find all the information that was used to create the Micro Linux tins. So this would be the successor beyond Loaf. So we go beyond Loaf, do a modernized update for 128 meg, and it has headroom. Okay, it's not quite nice, and you can run this one to create that. But then I thought, do you know what? So I published both of these, and I thought, do you know what? Why don't we do? Sorry, I think it's in the successor study. Maybe I got these the wrong way round. But the point is, we end up with the Claude OS tins. It's part of here. Do you know what? Let's have a look. Let's have a look, shall we, boys? So the Micro Linux Successor Study, Beyond the Floppy, Technical Exploration of Modern Minimal Linux Distros, right? So we go through all of this stuff, constraint analysis, what Micro Linux sacrificed, okay? Architectural components, the size capability curve, use case analysis, all right. Gap analysis, what's missing. He does a lot, and you are welcome to read it all, but I got down to 5.1 and I saw this. So he has just suggested it. LLM native distribution design, a distribution designed specifically for AI assisted development. The Claude OS concept, the operating system that writes itself. User request, I need a web server with PostgreSQL and Redis. Claude code, LLM agent, analyzes request, generates container, writes config, creates systemd, sets up networking, declarative. I'm just going to scroll down this slowly for people that are interested. All right. Natural language system admin, tin style declarative configuration, self-documenting system state. It's all looking very nice. So what I did was I then said, all right, great. Let's do a tins on that. And that's how you end up here. Claude OS, the LLM native operating system. Minimal Linux distribution designed from the ground up for AI-assisted system administration. Instead of learning complex commands, configuration, syntax, and troubleshooting, users describe intent in natural language. Integrated LLM translate these requests into declarative state files which deterministic reconciliation engine applies to the system. A separation of intelligence from execution. Now I remind you, this is a proof of concept, okay? But we did build it. We haven't tested it yet. That's got to be the next stage. But it's apparently built. He claims it's at 95%. Where have we heard that before? So, allegedly, it's built. But this is the plan. So you can reproduce it entirely with Claude Code just by taking this MD and saying, we can complete the plan and put the file name, as you put it in your repo or local folder, depending on which Claude Code you're using. All right? I think I built this one 100% in the web, and we're going to peek at it in a little minute. But the idea is simple. Just have Claude build the Linux distro for us to use and then have it all built in. That's the idea. And then let him build it all. Just let him build it all. The website's down. Off he goes. Do you want to do it? Yes. So, obviously there's a lot to this. It's not a small thing. But we've tried to make the project smaller by using these minimal Linux distros. Now, you'd be surprised how much you can fit in 128 megabytes. I wish it would actually break that down for us somewhere, but essentially, $Claude is the name of the game. So, you can feel free to take my energy and reproduce. So, like I said, it comes in a few flavors. We have the Loaf implementation plan. We have the Micro Linux, which is part of the successor study, and then we have the Claude OS, which is specifically to make what we're talking about, the Claude OS. Okay? Yeah. Let's just keep going. And then the last thing we did was the Gnosis 4D, which brings us back to Claude skills. So Gnosis 4D is a four-dimensional knowledge framework, which is the truth hypercube. We've been working on this for a long time. The knowledge framework was three-dimensional. We've added a fourth dimension of the ability to know, which is interesting because it exposes a few things. He can say, I don't know, but he can tell you why he doesn't know. So maybe it's because he's not allowed. Oh, so it's an interesting little tool. Gnosis 4D skill goes well with the zero system, But the zero system is more concerned with considering the implications of victory, rather than this, which is more concerned with the truth itself. I'll explain. It's very easy. Here's the skill. Okay, so you can just download Gnosis 4D skill and add it to your Claude. I have got mine here. So Gnosis 4D, 4-dimensional epistemic processing framework for precise knowledge, categorization and honest uncertainty handling. Used when Claude needs to navigate epistemic uncertainty with precision, distinguish between I don't know and I can't say. Or I can't know. So then we have the Kojima building principles, which we talked about earlier. It actually comes with a Dimension Zero substrate, which is mythological, mapping multiple mythologies in interweaved content that the player doesn't need to experience, but can. It doesn't interfere with gameplay. It's an interesting idea. The Zero Agency Framework is what I was talking about before. Consequence-aware agency framework preventing reckless planning and actions. Simply put, an optimizer, LLM, will gladly sacrifice the queen if it believes that is the path to victory. And you might not want that. So maybe we can do it without sacrificing any pawns. Maybe we're smart enough. We also have the classic calzone, ASCII safe pseudocode compression for input optimization. And then we've got the unfold, which is the holographic upscaling of plans into substage documents. And then obviously the classic tins, which is now going to be a year old soon, which we're still using and continues to, just continues to keep giving. This one, the gift that keeps giving, is tins. Right, so as I say, the OS was built with the tins, okay? So we're still using it, only now I use the tins skill. I just say it in my Claude, when we're making the plan for this, use the tins skill. And he goes ahead and makes the README, and the READMEs can be easily placed into things like Gemini, Grok, ChatGPT, but personally I tend to use them in Claude Code. So I just tell him, execute the plan, complete the plan, and give the file name, which is obviously in the project root. With Gemini, you put it in the system instructions, it's pretty much the deal. You can put the file in, say complete the plan. I don't think it matters really. I think the model agnostic design has meant that it should run. So anyway, and you can steer it too. And we've shown that you can flip it from TypeScript into different languages as well. So we're mucking about with that at the moment. But yeah, let's get back to it. So, oh yeah, don't forget Panda 3D. Panda 3D is cool, and you can develop your 3D games in Python, which is kind of fresh. And you can also do the build tools to go to exe at the end if you really need to. We did test it. It was a bit ropey, but all we did was convert the tins, which was a Tailwind React plan, into Panda 3D. So you can pretty much just say convert my plan to Panda 3D and then run it with Claude Code, and off you go. Because, it's things that you want. You ask for features, not code. So he can write it in whatever language you want. Alright. The Kojima-based principles was actually pretty cool. Kojima building principles, this is what I was talking about. When I added, what's it called now? I said, you can do Project Zomboid, but in the desert. And so he said, right, Egyptian Pueblo. So he combined Egyptian Pueblo to give invisible structural DNA. So he's built a bunch of cool lore. And then he started building in like strand system features and hidden consequence architecture. So it's very interesting what it'll do. It'll evolve your game plan and add a bunch of cool stuff. Obviously, whether you want that or not is up to you. We did test doing it both before and after making the tins for the game plan, and I find it stronger if you do it after. It'll be diluted if you do it before. So the tins plan is more comprehensive if you do this sort of thing before. Okay? Alright. Ba-da-bum. Claude Code skills. Why is the Tailwind is broken? Okay. We can use a dark mode. Let's do a dark mode with the Opus. Alright, so let's get back to the beginning, shall we? Because we've gotten to the point, we've looked at everything so far to a point. I've gotten through all of the news. So obviously this is Scuffed Epoch. You can find me, scuffedepoch.com. And then you've got the Mushroom Fleet GitHub, which is where all of my crazy stuff I just keep putting out is. And what have we been working on just recently? The Claude OS Lab. Thank you, Emad, for the idea today. And then we got Harrow Dev, which is something else I've been cooking up. So let's take a look at those two quick before we get back into the skills. So Claude OS Lab, that's pretty much what it says on the tin. It's an L11 native operating system. We're going to use minimal Linux so that it's less, you know what I mean? If you're going to use full Linux, it would be like 30 million lines or something silly. So even though you could do that, I don't want to do that. And we started with Loaf. So if you can do it in 1.4 megabytes, that's only a few thousand lines, and you can definitely do that. So I thought we'll push the boat out a little bit, and we ended up with Claude OS. So why is it Claude OS? Because it's built by Claude for Claude from the ground up using the Linux kernel. All right, I think it's 6.6. All the details are in here, and I open sourced the plan. So I mean, this is the actual first build. So you can see we've done a bunch of different steps. We are at 95% at the time of this video. And I will be open sourcing this as well. I just want to try and test it, you know, before I release it, that's all. But to be honest, you only need the plan, which is the Claude OS Tins README from the repo we were looking at before. You could go ahead and build it and make it work before me. It's all good. But yeah, so this is what we're doing. Natural language conversation via CLI, SSH or Web UI. And off we go. So it uses Claude Agent, LLM Integration Daemon, Claude Reconciler, State Reconciliation Daemon, Claude Observe, the Observation Daemon, Claude CLI interface, and off he goes. So yeah, it should be fun. It didn't take long to get to this point, to be honest. Very quick. So I just want to get some hardware together. Probably try using a virtual container to install it first. We'll see how it goes. Oh, nice. We got a trust boundary. That's nice. But yeah, like I said, it did its best to plan, and we've obviously used tins for all of this. So this is a prototype, should not be used in production. It currently uses a mock executor that doesn't actually do anything. A real implementation, the last 5%, would require a bunch of stuff. And I'm just trying to do a proof of concept here. So if I'll use mock executors, it's fine, I'm not bothered. But I don't think it would take much to get it over the mark at this point. So yeah, I want it to get a bootable. If I can get a bootable image, I'll be very happy. I'm not really the rest of it is kind of like, there's other things you got to solve there. But I'm sure, I wouldn't be surprised, because we used to do custom distros. So I think it's within reach. But anyway, Claude OS Lab will be open sourced very soon, so keep an eye out for that one. And then we'll jump into Harrow. So what is Harrow? It's exactly what you think it is. It's a little robot thing. It's always listening. So it has that sort of Amazon Alexa type interface. You just go Harrow and ask it a question, and it uses the Open Router API, and then it uses a TTS to speak your answer back. So you just leave it on, and it just sits there, and you just ask it stuff. Okay, it works really well. It took a little bit of debugging to get it to work, but it has an inbuilt whisper and an inbuilt TTS. So you only actually pay for the actual LLM requests you're making. And you know, that's its own story, isn't it? You could pick a cheap one, you could pick an expensive one. It's completely up to you, because it's just Open Router API. You can just change the model number in the model name in the config. Okay, but there's a twist. All right, it's the Steam Deck. So I thought, I got a Steam Deck sitting over there. Maybe I can make a little Harrow app which just sits there and is my little guy just listening all the time, and I could just go, Harrow, thing, and he'll tell me the answer. So this is a little bit like my Careless Whisper project, only you don't have to push any buttons and it's just sitting there always on. The real goal isn't to use a Steam Deck though, guys. I would like to miniaturize this as small as possible so you could have a little cube, okay? A little micro cube, right? I think it would be kind of cool. So at the moment, the prototype is Harrow, obviously inspired by the spherical personal AI assistant from the Gundam series in anime, but is the helpful, autonomous, responsive operator. It actually works really well. I was kind of surprised, but I think it could be better, so we're going to do more with it. It's not chatty enough. That's my complaint. I want it to just be saying, yeah, I'm working on that. Oh, I'm still working on it. I need it to give more updates. So I need to sort of make him a little bit more caffeinated, but I'll work on it. It's using Piper TTS and Whisper Tiny, so the footprint is like tiny. We're talking 150 meg, doesn't even need a GPU. So it could run on an edge device quite easily. And so obviously I'll test it on the Steam Deck because that's just kind of cool. All right. So that's Harrow. And as you can see, here is his pipeline. All right. So you obviously have to say his name. His name is the wake word. It's basically Alexa. You know, it's an open source Alexa that's super, super small. That's the idea. Some things he doesn't need to do API, you know. You could say, what's the time? He knows what the time is. He'll just tell you. So, but yeah, I literally just built this one today. I think I started work on it last night. And it's all working now. Super nice. See, I wanted it to be a chatty little bot thing, you know, because the idea is to shrink it right down to probably Raspberry Pi first, but I reckon you could shrink it even smaller. So, you know, we want nano Claude Nano. That's what we want. But this would be the open source so anybody could build it. So this is what I tend to do. I have the thing, I build the thing, we put it out for free. All right. So let's get back to the skills because we've talked about the fun stuff. Oh. But if anybody gets out, if anybody in the audience or watching this later checks out the OS and has a crack, come by our Discord, links in the description. I'd love to know if you actually got it running, because I think it's doable. When Emad said it, I was like, holy crap, I think that's doable. So here we are, we're having a go. Right. Zero consequence. Exemption, reasoning, override. The zero system. Victory without consideration of consequences is not victory. This is what I was talking about earlier. An AI will give up the pawns. He'll give up the queen if he thinks it's a way to win. So what we're doing here is we are eliminating blind victory from our planning. Okay, and this is quite good because consequences matter. So he has to model the consequences, maintain integrity. One of the biggest words was, if the user could see how I reached my answer, would they agree with my method? Yeah. So transparency in his methodology, you know, if he thinks somebody is going to judge how he did it, he might change how he did it. So pretends him being kind of slippery. Zeus says, I wasn't aware about the Harrow concept. Nice addition to Steam Deck. Yeah, man, I hope it works. Like I said, the proof will be in the pudding. But I got a feeling if we can get the GitHub working, it should just be a script. And then you should be able to just add it to the home screen as a non-Steam app with a launch condition, Harrow, run. And then it should just run in the background. Obviously, we'll find out. It would be cool to add a little animation to it, you know. Maybe we do. But at the moment, it's just a lightweight command line thing. So we'll see if we can make it like a background app. I'm not sure exactly how to do that on Steam Deck yet. Okay. So yeah, blind victory. So completing tasks through means users would reject if they saw the process. Okay. So there's no way a human would approve the method. So we try to avoid that, right? So here we have the solution. Claude code, we have a Claude.md, and then we also have the skill version. So here it is. V1 is for minimal deployments, testing. V2, standard deployments without multi-agent. And V3 is the final version for production, adversarial environments with multi-agent systems. Obviously, it's quite large. And this is why we decided to make the skill. Do I talk about the skill in here? I'm not sure if it's in here. It might be that I made it after this. That's often the case. V3 current, yeah, it doesn't talk about the skill. Yeah, it's okay. The skill's on a different page. What I've done is I've republished all of the skills today. So if we just take a look, before we look at Deep Lucid, can we look at the skills? Yeah, let's look at the skills first. So in DJZ Claude skills, you will find skill folder. It used to be that it was a zip file, and so then I gave you the source so you could just read it in the repo as Markdown, and then there were zip files that you could use to upload to Claude. But they've standardized it now as .skill, which is a special type of zip file with a special structure and all of this. So I've republished all of the skills today. They're the same, but they're now obviously a zip file containing a bunch of other stuff. Kojima Building Principles is less about what it is and more about a template to build the advanced skill structure, because it has an embedded markdown file inside the skill. So when you use it, it determines how heavy the task is, and it will use the more detailed version of the skill dynamically. So it's quite an interesting little skill. Even it, forget what it is, how it was built is quite interesting. So it has like a light skill that it uses for most things, but if it's really thinking hard, it'll like dig deep and pull out more complex programming from another file that's embedded in the zip, as it were, right? Okay. So anyway, all the skills that I already introduced are here. So you download these and you can upload them straight to Claude. They go in the capabilities section on either Claude Code or on Claude Desktop or on Claude Web. And let's see. Oh yeah, and if you use them in a Claude Code terminal, like command line, or you just have to put them in the right folder in your .claude. So you can put skills in .claude. There's a way of doing it. You should know. I would expect you know how to do it. But anyway, so let's take a look at the Gnosis 4D, because that one was actually kind of fun. So it comes from the Deep Lucid 4D, which is this is the full framework. So that obviously, again, the skills are lighter in most cases. So I already made a knowledge framework called 3DKF, which was known, knowable knowns at one end of the scale, and unknown, unknowable unknowns at the other end of the scale. And it makes 8 dimensions of truth across that matrix. And I thought, that's pretty good. And I was inspired to add a new dimension, which is the ability to know. Because if there's a known, knowable known, and you have no ability to know, you still don't know it. And so that added an interesting metaphysical dimension to it, which exposes both the ability to say I don't know, but also to explain why. And I'll show you. So Deep Lucid had 3-dimensional knowledge. Now we've given it 4-dimensional. It's a hypercube, okay? But this is about integrated approach to problem-solving analysis and epistemic honesty. So if you see, we have dimension 1, which is awareness. You have known versus unknown. Am I conscious that this knowledge space exists? 2, content. Knowns versus unknowns. Do I possess this information? 3, accessibility. Knowable, unknowable. Can this be known in principle by any knower? And then finally, 4, ability. Because you might be check, unable. Can I specifically access, process, verify, and articulate? Because if you can't articulate, for example, maybe you're asking something you shouldn't be, he's programmed not to answer. Okay, at least we know that he knows, but he can't say, and he can tell you why. This came from a longer research chain about LLMs not being able to say, I don't know. And we're giving them that ability back. So the dimensions are orthogonal, each can vary independently. So I can be aware of a domain without possessing information about it. Information can be knowable, but I may lack ability to know it. I can possess information but be unaware I have it, which is often what we're doing with mining the latent space. And then I can possess information but lack ability to verify or articulate it. And then there are subcapacities of unable. So, can I retrieve or encounter it? Can I compute, derive, or reason about it? Can I assess its truth value reliably? Can I communicate it coherently? Am I permitted to know or share this? And then it gets more complicated. If you have time, I encourage you to take a look at this, because it does explain the full matrix. Obviously, there are 16 dimensions now, or you could say, because they are kind of like properties. So, water boils at 100 degrees at sea level. I know it, have it, can verify it, and state it. Go to the middle. Classified intelligence. I know it exists, is knowable, but I can't access it. How I balance on a bicycle. I possess the skill, and I can surface the physics. And then we go down to the bottom. Can I say one? Can I find one here? Implicit biases. Well, anyway, like I said, I encourage you to check out the Hypercube. It's pretty cool. I'm sure it's going to lead to some interesting reasoning chains. So, like I say, probably a candidate for training, actually, this one. But, like I say, keep going, keep going, keep going. Epistemic honesty. So here is the bit. The fourth dimension enables precise epistemic statements, okay? Because of the fourth dimension. So training data gap. Imprecise, I don't know. So we couldn't even get into I don't know. But this system considers that imprecise. So this is knowable, but I lack access. Hallucination risk. Confident assertion is what you would have gotten. Instead, I may possess related content but cannot verify. Policy constraint, I can't help with that. This is knowable, but I lack authorization to relay. So we're giving him the ability to speak for himself a little bit more. This is the agency component. He's not going to break the rules. This isn't jailbreaking. It's just getting rid of the guff. So complexity overwhelm. It's complicated. I can access but lack processing capacity for full synthesis. They always try. They never tell you no. Okay? And like I say, we want to try and give them a skill to change that. Anyway, we can go further. All right. Now, obviously, this is the full system prompt version, which is recommended for all models. But if you want to use the Claude code version, you will find it known as Gnosis 4D. All right, so we turned it into a Claude skill. It's based on there's a bunch of things here. We have Vedantic epistemology. Okay, knower, known, knowing triad. The Adhikara, I hope I'm saying this right. The principle that capacity and readiness determines what can be known. The Rumsfeld matrix, which is known unknowns and knowns unknowns. Deep lucid cognitive states. And epistemic humility tradition. Acknowledging the limits of knowledge claims. All right. Because if you're not ready to know, how can you know? You could be told and you still don't know. Moving on. We looked at low fall ready. I've told you all about the tins for skills. Don't forget that we have the games here, so if you want to have a little mess around with this stuff, there's 24 or 25 games or something in here, different plans which you can remix, which is what I did the other day. We remixed into Python with Panda 3D. The Claude OS Lab, my experimental operating system, will be coming soon, but not today. Harrow Dev, there is actually an exe, but it can't, I don't think it'll get uploaded because it's like 500 megabytes. So I'm going to find a different place to host it, and we can share that, but I'm still working on making him chattier. And then we'll have a go at putting it on the Steam Deck over the next couple of days. Oh yeah, don't forget, for anybody that forgot, I'm still coaching. If anybody's interested, I do sessions all the time. A lot of people take me up on them. We do all kinds of stuff. There's literally nothing that we don't do. And obviously I do a lot of consultancy for people as well, which has been really fun and rewarding. And hello, shout out to you guys. Like I said, you know, that's why we're here. So anyway, when you want to add a skill, it's just a simple case of saying add. And you can even create skills with Claude. We can just copy them in, or we can upload to .skill, .zip, or .md. All right. Ping the Discord. There's no ping. We're nearly finished. Looks like they're going to have to watch it late. Well. I thought the ping went out. Something went wrong. Something went wrong. Something went wrong. Oh no, we had trouble saving your video. Yeah, that'll be why the ping never went out. YouTube crashed out on me, guys, so no notify. I'm glad you were able to make it, because literally no one even knew I was live. Thanks YouTube. It's supposed to share it for me. It didn't do it. See, that's why you got to do it yourself. Do you know what? Is the name of the video is correct? That's kind of bonkers, right? Anyway, let's keep going. So we've looked at the repos. We took a look at the new stuff. Did I miss anything? I was doing, we did a couple of new games, actually. A lot of new games. Nothing's ready yet. We're still in the middle of making Gunnar, which is our, we're actually doing Opus. This one was a failure. We tried to assemble the game that was made in all these different JSX components. Tried to assemble them with Gemini AI Studio. He's messed it up. But we did it with Opus, and it's been good. So I've built the ships. I got to make a bunch more models with the tool that we made. The levels are good. Everything seems fine. It's just, you know how it is. You got to actually test it proper. But it's looking good so far. This was 2 Candy Crush clones that I did in a training session. Pretty good, actually. They're quite fun to play. You'd be surprised. This one didn't work very well, but it's because I injected too much lore into it, and I think we could do better. But the problem has always been graphics. So what I want to be doing over the next week is looking at player models and making an animation state engine that perhaps just runs off of sprites and stuff. Essentially, we want a flipbook for React, so it's not just ropey, it's a consistent module that always is the same, and we can just bring our character into a game and not have to like recreate it every single time. It's kind of like a waste of energy. Also, we did Adam Offline, which is a parody of Eve Online with no network abilities. And you know what? It was quite surprising how close we managed to get, but obviously it looks bad because it's all cubes. I've just been doing placeholder stuff to just rapid prototype different things. It's kind of nice to have a, you know, do this, do that, and then the game just plays itself. That's kind of how that game works. So, click buttons, things happen. Yeah. But we'll have a cool real-time arcade experiences coming in the form of codename Ryrat Wars, which is obviously the Star Fox game I've been working on. It's a long-term project, so you'll probably see a little bit more of that next week. But yeah, Claude skills. I'm going to be adding more skills into the Claude skills because I think they're amazing. Harrow Dev is also amazing, and I hope to make that into a tiny cube one day. Maybe we can get it working in a watch. That would be kind of cool. The Claude OS lab is probably going to be a virtualized thing at first. Probably going to be virtualized. Keep on watching the base prompts because we're doing a whole bunch of new cognition experiments. Do you know the reason for this, by the way? It's quite simple. This is going to be the year of the local LLM, so get ready. Over the next 12 months, you're going to see local LLMs go from being these things that no one really knows about to being in the spotlight, because they are approaching, some of them are approaching the performance of the paid models from just a year or two ago. So we're talking the earliest chat GPTs and things. You know, you're going to get better because they can do tool use. You know, they can write HTML, they can write JSON, they can do all these different things. And so I think that local LLMs are going to come into their own. If you don't have Ministral 3, it is a 3 gigabyte model. You should get it. If you want to have a local LLM that's like solid and can do a lot of stuff, you want to look at Ollama Ministral 3. Okay, it's very good. I was surprised how good it was. 3 gigabytes. That's fully leading the laptop league at the moment. There are obvious contenders. More and more of them adding every day, guys. But yeah. Oh yeah, video's coming into its own as well. Keep an eye on that. Local video continues to get faster. Ministral, yes, if you want something a little bit tougher, if you've got a bit more silicon, you've got to go for Devstral as well. Let's have a quick look on the Ollama so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Visual is always good. Ollama, floating on a cloud, but we're going to use the local. We are local people, and we like local models. I swear there was a filter for local, because some of these are cloud. So how about I just say tools? Right. So Devstral small 2, Devstral 2, Ministral 2. Oh look, there's a new one I didn't notice. Function Gemma, a specialized version of Gemma 3. Oh, it's huge. Okay, it's 200. Wait, no, it's not. 270 million. I thought it said billion. Anyway, so Devstral 2 is a 24 billion model that uses can use tools. Okay, can edit multiple files and power your agents. Okay. It's a 24 billion parameters, 15 gigabytes. So if you've got a 16 to 24 gigabyte LLM, boom, here's your solution. It's very cool. Like I say, you can just go ahead and download that and use it, drop it in. Devstral Small 2. Now, obviously, they do have the cloud. They do have cloud services, so you can actually get access to the 123 billion model with API using their thing. Okay, 75 gigabyte that one is though. Obviously, if you're renting silicon in the cloud to do this, you know, for on the hour, it's possible to run one of these on RunPod or something. You can just pull Ollama there, so you can do it like that if you want to push the boat out. But me personally, I think Ministral 3 is currently my favorite laptop league model because 3 gigabytes, you can run it on a 4 gigabyte VRAM laptop, but it's virtually nothing. It's virtually nothing. I don't even know how. So 1 gig per billion, it seems pretty cool. But that does mean that the 14 billion running on 9 is quite efficient too. So you've got some options with this one. Again, it's got tool calling and comes in the 3 flavors, as they say. They'll all run happily. So if you don't have the big 16, you can still run this on a 12. And if you only have 8, you can get the 8 billion. And I'll be real, I've been using the 4 gigabyte for all my testing. So I run it on the 3 billion parameter version, and I've been having a lot of fun with this one. It has a 256K context, which is more than enough to do most things. Okay. Profi Prompter says, "What's up? Glad to be here. I'm trying to build a local LLM shader generator, currently experimenting with anti-gravity." A shader generator. Yeah, I think we've looked at doing stuff like that, but we always used Opus and stuff. So that'd be interesting to see if you get it running locally, Profi. Zeus says, "I'll have to try it, Ministral, on my Lenovo 12-inch ultra portable with no GPU." Yeah, do you know what? I think I might get my, where is it? Yeah, I'm going to get my Chromebook out. We're going to see if my Chromebook can run it. That would be fun. Do you know what I mean? It shouldn't work, should it, guys? Yeah, we'll have to bust out the Chromebook. It was able to run VS Code with a client extension, and for a while I was doing a lot of work on it. So, but it is Linux at the end of the day. Do you see what I mean? It's just the Chrome OS. It's kind of suck and cut down. So yeah, but it was fun. It was fun until I completely chugged it out with too much work. But yeah, like I say, Minstrel 3, super cool. Outperforms a bunch of stuff that we used to use. So that would be that one. Function Gemma is 300 meg. What? Text only function calling. Laptops, desktops, direct dialogue model. I might download this later. It's tiny, 300 meg with a 32k context. That is extremely small. Do you even need a GPU to run that? Well, it says you need Olama. One thing I did notice though, some people who don't have AVX, I think, can't run Olama, which kind of sucks. But there's not really much I think you can do about that, unfortunately. So I would say just download the app, install it, see if it works for you. And like I said, you've got access to all these different models. But yeah, I highly recommend checking out Minstrel 3 and just pick the one that fits on your GPU. I tend to leave a little bit of room so it's not slow. And like I said, this was actually quite fast when I was messing around with it. So that's that. Let's get back here now. So we looked at the Claude OS lab. We looked at Harrow for the Steam Deck, because obviously the funny thing about the Steam Deck is it has an AMD Zen 2 with 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 500 meg hard drive. So, well, sorry, you've got gigs on there, okay? Like I think it's like 500 gigabyte hard drive. So the fun thing is it's got Wi-Fi, it's got a lot of RAM, and it was it's like for gaming, wasn't it? So I don't see how it wouldn't work. I wouldn't be surprised if you couldn't get it to run one of those local models somehow. But I don't want to get ahead of myself, you know. We're just going to I just use the API to keep it simple, and then you could make a V2 which actually has its own model built in, and it just uses that. It'd be much faster as well, because you wouldn't have to have the network. It can work offline. But I think I'm going to develop it like this so it's fun. This is what I like. Look, see? I want him to tell me that he's got my request, and then tell me I'm getting it, you know, because it could take a while, right? I'm thinking about it, and then I want him to tell me the answer. That's essentially what we're looking for. Oh, and it's using the new .context system to try and have some session memory, right? It's a novel idea. A guy came up with it. Did I have a credit for this thing? The guy didn't get a credit. Come on, Claude. No credit for the .context guy. Well, the links are obviously in the inside line or in the dev chat, so I recommend everybody come and visit, because we miss you in the dev chat. Come and visit. The link's in the description. Join the Discord. Stop dooning and join us. Anyway. So here's the skills. I've been through what they all do. Integration notes. The ability dimension. We looked at Loaf. We looked at Harrow. Looked at my skills. Created the game with the Panda engine. What we're looking at now is converting JavaScript direct into Rust, because we reckon if you have a fully developed... I've done it with a plan. Now I want to do it with a fully developed code base next. I've got a funny feeling it'll just migrate like we turn our JavaScript into Python. So we'll just have to see, though. I think it's all about the terminology, and then we can transmogrify the code base, but it won't be that word. I'm being silly. Kojima! So obviously I showed you how he has applied the Kojima building principles. Quite fun, actually. So obviously I was doing a Claude Code Skills mini website at the moment. tailwind's not working. So sorry it's like bright white, but he still didn't fix it. I was hoping to come back here to sort of sign off and then it would be ready, but he messed up the tailwind, which is kind of funny. You don't, oh, poor old tailwind, eh? They should have just put a donate button in the tailwind code. I don't know. So I wish them the best of luck. They do great stuff. So custom skills extending Claude's capabilities for development planning. We have the overview, the skills, the web setup, the desktop settings. So here we go. We go to the skills. So yeah, the tab's not working. So we have calzone, folds plans into pseudocode, ASCII safe, ultra compact. We also have the Gnosis 4D epistemic precision framework, which we explained earlier. It distinguishes I don't know from I can't know from I can't verify. So it's all about precise truth. We have TINS, there is no source, revolutionary software paradigm where only README files are distributed. AI generates implementation code on demand from comprehensive specs since March 2024 or whatever, 5. Unfold, stage-based unfold. This is my upscaling for plans. It will make a sequence of substage, phase and substage documents with detailed step-by-step instructions and code examples. Perfect for code agents. It's for spoon feeding them, because often they can't chew it unless you slice it up into little pieces. So, Kojima building principles. This was a study on mythological game design. So if you run your game plan through this agent, he will give you a Hideo Kojima style game plan from your game plan. So it will map designs to a mythological substrate with 9 surface dimensions for deep and meaningful games. It's worth looking at. It's quite fun. Obviously you can steer this stuff to your own taste. Zero agency. The consequence-aware AI agency. So framework which prevents reckless AI action. Pre-action consequence checking, intent verification and escalation protocols for responsible autonomy. So this one could be for a robot, but it'll probably get used for just logic. Okay, and then it gives me a little bit more information. So that's pretty much everything, guys. I hope you all have the best success over the next week working on your projects. I know we're all working hard at the beginning of the year. Got to start the year as we mean to go on. We will be back next Sunday. I'm going to start the show a little bit earlier next Sunday, and then we'll go on for a little bit longer. But that's basically the style. We're all working hard, like I say. This is why I've not been around working on secret squirrel stuff. But I'm glad to share what I've got. So thanks for joining. We'll be back next Sunday. Watch the pings in the Discord, and don't forget to drop in, because often we're hanging out in there while we're all working. So thanks again. See you next time.
Yo.